Well, we all know, as they say, another day, another piece of stereo audio equipment. Well, maybe that's not what they say, but it's what I say, and this happens to be another piece of audio equipment that was on the docket for recording and documentation for other people's enjoyment and entertainment. This is a realistic STA-52B AM and FM stereo receiver. It was introduced in 1979. This receiver is really in exceptional condition for its age, considering that it's survived how many years, how many decades, with little more than just a few scratches, maybe a scuff mark and a ding or two. But aside from that, it truly is in remarkable condition for a receiver of this age. ClassicReceivers.com has an entry for this receiver, claiming that it sold for roughly $200 and had limited features, but it had a very aesthetically pleasing black dial face with orange or yellow illumination provided by fuse lamps. Also have a tuning indicator and a stereo indicator. It was designed as a low-end unit for those on a budget, but it had features that other receivers at a similar price point did not have. And there we go, confirmation of what I had mentioned earlier. It was merely a 12 watt per channel receiver, so certainly not a powerhouse, but enough to really sound quite good with the right amount of bass and treble adjustments. Unfortunately, my model, the STA-52B, does not have the virtual quadrophonic sound or QVox feature, which uses a synthesizing technique to create a very, very odd and peculiar pseudo-quadrophonic sound through 4 speakers. This model didn't have it. It was a pretty useless feature, honestly, for all intents and purposes. In fact, the 1977 Radio Shack catalog, provided thankfully via RadioShackCatalogs.com, if we go ahead and jump over to page 12, which hopefully shouldn't take all that long, will reveal to us the stereo receiver in question. And I believe I went one too far. Yes, I did. There it is, 12 watts per channel. You can see its original specifications, features, and other claims. AM, FM, phono, and aux make appearances on this function selector switch, as does an alternative FM pre-emphasis, or rather de-emphasis setting, which is interesting. Loudness, tape monitor, and a mono button. Some speaker settings for out A, reverse B, and A plus B, and unfortunately this knob looks to be stripped, because if I try to spin it, it just keeps spinning and spinning and spinning, and it doesn't actually make any adjustment. But I don't want to do that now and strip it further. Bass, treble, balance, and volume knobs, which work well, they're not scratchy. Power button, and a 1/4-inch stereo phones jack, which has some oxidation inside, so I'm presently only hearing audio on the right channel, and the left channel's audio is very, very faint. This should give you a better look at the dial. Again, very nice. We also have LED indications for when we're switched to FM or AM. Knob works just fine, it's not bent or broken. Looking at the rear of the unit definitely gives us some clues as to how well built it actually is. These are some thick sides. The internal chassis is slid inside of this large, sturdy wooden frame, so it shouldn't be too terribly difficult to replace any burned out fuse bulbs. Radio Shack, a division of Tandy Corporation of Fort Worth, Texas. Surprisingly, not only do you have your usual screw-type terminals for speaker connections, you also have some RCA connections for your speakers, a DIN type tape in and out jack, as well as your customary RCA tape out in aux and magnetic phono inputs, the ground lug for the turntable, and also connections here for your antenna, whether it be FM 300 ohms, 75 ohms, or an AM antenna. This looks to be an aftermarket edition. I don't believe that this receiver came with this, but then again it could very well come with something similar. And it looks like a power line adapter that converts your power cord into a very, very crude but workable and usable FM antenna. So that does look to work fine, although the screw is a bit loose. And you do have a very nice large AM loopstick antenna, which is adjustable. and some large vents on the top, although I don't see why you would really need it, as it's not all that powerful of a receiver. I won't really go into that much depth in tearing apart this receiver and taking a look at its insides, because fellow YouTuber Max Arcade has done a video of this receiver, this very same receiver, as well as attempting to repair it. I've had to extinguish the two lights which are responsible for creating the most amount of interference, both on FM and AM, as they are LED lights and I usually don't have radios plugged into this outlet. Those which are plugged into outlets which are shared by my stereo components still use incandescent bulbs, just because I can't stand the interference that they cause. But now we can take a listen.
And Express Scripts. Top plans based on 2015 Medicare enrollment data. Walgreens participates with other plans. See walgreens.com/Medicare for details.
You're salmon and he's sirloin. He's pale ale and you're Pinot Noir. Relationships are full of mix and match and make it work. Keeps it interesting. Woo! But when you hit the hay, you deserve to get your way.
The loudness switch really makes for an effective boost, both treble and bass wise. It's incredibly amazing.
It's centered on
So
The Slave, and it's on the same album with
A station playing vinyl?
From a land so far, I was caught and I was brought here from Africa.
This is the greatest part.
Operations.
And the needle does work. Uncharacteristic of older model stereo tuners and receivers, tuning meter does work. Very surprised to see that. This station has a lot of bass, so I don't really need to turn on the loudness. Very nice audio quality.
S&P 500 index down 41, a drop of 2.2%. NASDAQ down 126 points, a drop of 1.7%. Global news 24 hours a day, powered by our 2,400 journalists in more than
and there is no cost to you until you see results. Get your life back. Live free. Live extract clear. For your no-cost treatment, call now.
It's pretty surprising when you come across an AM radio station that actually has an ear towards good quality. This one sounds very, very good compared to that one I just had on. Doesn't sound like you're listening to a low bitrate MP3 internet radio stream.
That represents the driver says there's no deal yet. Mayor de Blasio says it's too soon to ask.
When we have an agreement, we don't have an agreement yet. When we have an agreement, we'll go over it with you and we'll answer all those questions.
Sources telling Juliet Papa of 1010 Wins that the two sides are still talking about such issues as how to compensate drivers who would lose their jobs and whether to raise the fee for rides in exchange for a nighttime ban. Ultimately, the plan...
one of the things that
Inside the International Space Station.
It was totally unexpected.
I'll be there with you. From here, it's me, it's you I
love. These are not audiophile grade speakers by any stretch of the imagination. They're just simple JVC 180 watt. Well, I don't know if that's, I think that's split between the two. I don't think that one of these speakers can handle 180 watts, but who knows. At 6 ohms.
Well, 7.1 The Peak, remembering January of 1997 on the 10 at 10. And we started with Sublime and that band's first big hit. It went to #1 at Modern Rock Radio and would continue on to become a top 40 hit. What I Got from Sublime. off their third album, Sublime. Many of you probably recognize the theme to King of the Hill. That animated series debuted on Fox in January of 1997. Created by Greg Daniels and Mike Judge, he voiced main character Hank Hill, head of the All-American family in Arlen, Texas. King of the Hill ran for 13 seasons. It was in late 96 and early 97 that folks first started hearing about Matchbox 20. Thanks to the song Long Day, the first single off their debut album, Yourself or Someone Like You. That was getting played on mainstream rock stations a good half year before people discovered songs like Push and 3 a.m.
I'm really amazed. It's a radio station that has an actual announcer that just speaks more than just a few words before each song. This person is actually going into the history of the songs and providing some backstory and history along with other songs.
Their follow-up to the breakthrough album, Under the Table and Dreaming, was Crash.
That's a very rare occurrence on modern-day commercial radio, and this is a commercial radio station. Seems you're lucky to get just a few words, the station ID, and an overabundance of commercials and obnoxious advertisements, and that's about it. So this radio station is definitely the minority, in the minority these days.
Juliet. That was a hit for the band Garbage in between their first and second albums. And we'd like your feedback on today's 10 at 10. Use the thumbs up and thumbs down buttons on the Peak playlist.
Something that definitely betrays the age of this receiver is what happens when you go to power it down.
It's Dina in Peak Promotions with a list of prizes you could sign up.
You pick one out for me, Delilah.
All right, I'll find.
And look what happens to the LED. Takes a while, but it does eventually go out completely. My sincerest apologies for continuing this video on longer than it probably should. I had to get this on video. This is amazing for a 12-watt per channel receiver, how this really gets the room moving. It really is impressive that a receiver of this size and caliber can sound that good.